Hey guys, it's Payne. I'm really excited to introduce a brand new show to Bet the Board that combines sports and alternative investing, the very first of its kind. Sports betting and collectibles converging is inevitable. Let me tell you why. Sports cards and memorabilia are another way to get money into the market and do it without limit restrictions or the substantial hold you're accustomed to with sports betting. Whether you collected cards as a kid and are looking to get back into the hobby, this podcast is for you. If you've been collecting cards for years, this podcast will make you think and operate more efficiently. Are you in real estate? The parallels to investing in sports cards and memorabilia are uncanny. You're on Wall Street? Well, listen close. The best sports cards have outperformed the S&P 500 by 6x since 2013. And during the 2008 market crash, sports cards held up better than the S&P 500. Bet the Board, in conjunction with PWCC, presents CardBoard Chat, an entertaining, sophisticated, and informative podcast that combines sports, analytics, betting, cards, and memorabilia. Without further ado, this is CardBoard Chat with Jesse Craig, a leading figure in the collectible space, and me, Payne. I didn't think we'd ever get this show off the ground. We were doing Kevin Duckworth trivia prior to the show.
Well, it's a good way to kick off our opening topic with a little NBA.
Yeah, busy week. Obviously, the draft concluded, had some major trades. Now we kind of ramp up for free agency. Your boy, Damian Lillard, is meeting with the Blazers today, possibly right now as we're recording, to discuss the franchise's future direction. Your boy Scoot Henderson falls to you at 3. I thought that was a little bit shocking. And then in the post presser says he's going 0-0. I guess he's trying to lure Lillard into staying.
Yeah, and that's hence the Kevin Duckworth correlation there.
It all comes full circle.
Don't know.
0-0.
Full circle. Kevin Duckworth used to wear 0-0 for the Blazers. Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you hear? You think Dame stays? Do you think he goes? There's certainly been multiple members of the Miami Heat flirting with Lillard, and Dame seems to be receptive to playing for another organization for the first time in his career. Obviously, Miami's a little bit different. If you're not fully abreast of what the Miami Heat are, it's one of the best-run organizations in the entire league. So you could see why Dame would be willing to go to a team like the Miami Heat. I think him leaving is very dependent on where he would actually go.
Yeah. I think everything's on the table right now. Like we were mentioning before we got on here, you know, their 17 point guards that they have on the team. I mean, they have a slew of options. Do you try to trade Anthony Simons and keep Lillard? Do you get rid of Lillard with a big package and, you know, bring in a big and, you know, maybe a vet presence if you're losing Lillard? You know, there's just the Blazers can do a lot, and I guarantee you they're not going to have all those point guards on their roster come opening day.
So if Dame's gone, then it's basically Scoot, Simons, and Sharp. That's the trio.
Yeah, a lot of young fellas. That will need some veteran leadership. So maybe old Kevin Love can come back home and help guide the Blazers to the promised land.
Yeah, we'll see about that. I kind of feel like he's enjoying that Miami lifestyle right now.
He does he likes Miami. He's very, and he loves Jimmy, and they're, you know, drinking a lot of wine together, hanging out. So it's a pretty good gig in Miami.
We talk about Miami. There's another team in the Eastern Conference. It's Boston. They were able to land Porzingis in a big trade. What do you think there before I give you some of my thoughts?
Yeah, it's I've always loved Marcus Smart, you know, as a fit for that team specifically. They already have a lot of scoring, and he's a defensive energy guy and just all around, you know, hard-nosed basketball player. So I like that. Porzingis on paper looks really good, right? Like his length, he can shoot, but he's always had injury issues, and he's never been a winner. And I worry that it's going to be status quo, but, you know, maybe the front office there, the coaching staff in Boston, you know, it's a quality organization. Maybe they can ignite something in him, keep him healthy, and, you know, get Porzingis to his full potential that everyone's really been waiting for his whole career, because he's just Didn't do it in Dallas. Didn't obviously do it in Washington. He's just been a really a no-name guy the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think, he's got a pretty nice ability, and, this year had a monster season, showed that he could stay a little bit healthy, played 65 games, 23-8, and just very efficient, can defend multiple positions. I think, it's tough finding a big man that can space the floor. And the deal initially, I preferred much better, right? It was Brogdon that was in the deal. Then he couldn't pass the physical. Yeah. So then, Marcus Smart gets included in the deal. And, I like Marcus Smart better than Brogdon just because he's elite at one thing. Memphis feels like a great fit for Marcus Smart. But I think what I'm hearing from you and kind of my vibe is like, I love the Porzingis app. I was actually hoping the Knicks would bring him back. But I don't know if this solves Boston's issues of initiating half-court offense. Like, who's the guy that can actually run this offense? And that's the reason why the Heat actually beat them, because, it was a lot of one-on-one.
They need a true point guard. They need a true point guard. They don't have that. Like, let a point guard create for Tatum and Brown, right? Put Brown at the 3, Tatum at the 2. And the thing about Porzingis, too, it's like people got to realize he's almost as tall as Wemby, and he can shoot. So, yeah, while it's impressive this last season, he averaged 23 and 8, only 8 rebounds at a guy that size, 23 points. Like, you should get 23 points in layups every game. Like, what do we do? And he has a fairly, solid frame. He's not like he's skinny. So I'm confused by, I think it's a complete waste. This is going to sound, might sound a little harsh coming from a guy that averaged 23 and 8 last season. But when you're 7'3" and you can shoot in the NBA, to not be averaging a double-double every season, to not be scoring almost 30 freaking points a game, seems like a waste to me.
Tough critic.
Yeah, tough critic.
The other...
Yeah, sorry. If I'm 7'3", I'm averaging 50. Let's go.
Yes. I think when we look at the rest of the moves that were made, Phoenix obviously made the splash before we recorded last week, but there's some news that came out, and there's a report from Sports Illustrated just a couple of hours ago, and it claims the Suns are going to keep DeAndre Ayton for the upcoming season. My guess is they couldn't find a dance partner on draft night. There were talks about a 3-team deal where Philly would send Tobias Harris to Phoenix. Philly would get back assets and picks. The third team would get Ayton. That seems to have fell through. So it's a big 3.5, we'll call it, in Phoenix. You think that's enough to propel them to a potential title?
I mean, they're going to have to bring in a bunch of veterans and league minimum guys because they don't have a lot of money to play with keeping Ayton, right? Like, they've got some monster contracts with Beal, Ayton. Now you've got, Durant and Booker. I mean, really solid 4 right there. But look at what the Heat did, what they were able to do, and that was predominantly because of their deep. Their bench was really strong. They played hard. They played physical. They played as a team. They D'd up. Like, it's just all scores, it feels like, on the Suns team. And I don't know if that's going to get it done.
Your Lakers, a point of contention here. I wasn't going to ask you about it, but I mean, just,
Don't sleep on my boys. Don't sleep on them.
Beasley.
Hey,
listen to this.
We got the...
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would say Big Ten Freshman of the Year at number 17. In Hood-Schifino. He's a big point guard, plays a pick and roll really well, which is what the Lakers need, right? Not a great shooter, needs to work on his shooting, but I'm telling you, man, like, if LeBron doesn't retire, they're gonna be back. They're gonna be ready to rock and roll.
Be back. So you're looking at this roster: Beasley, Mo Bamba, Russell, Schroeder, Walker, Rui, and your boy Austin Reeves, all different variants of free agent. Which are those players should the Lakers keep? Which ones would you walk away from?
Well, based on playoff performance, I mean, Rui really solidified himself as a good fit for that team. He played unreal in the playoffs. Reeves has been solid all year. They call him the White Mamba for a reason. He is a stud. He plays hard. He's just a great role player for that team. So I don't want to get rid of Reeves. Beasley is so inconsistent. You could cut him today, and I wouldn't shed a tear. Who else did you mention?
Schroeder had some big games for you, and then your boy D'Angelo Russell. That feels like it might be time to.
Yeah, D'Lo came back, played well in spots, but also was inconsistent. Would just disappear.
Was a non-factor
no different
in the big series.
No different than AD sometimes, honestly. Like, that's been my rub with Anthony Davis is the guy will just lay a goose egg, feels like, in an important game every once in a while. And it's like, dude, you can't, as a superstar in the league, you can't do that. Like, that's not okay. You're getting paid a max contract to perform in the biggest moments. You can't lay goose eggs. And he does that too much. I felt like, Russell's not in the same category as Anthony Davis by any means, but it felt like he did the same thing. He would get crazy hot, have some really good games, and then just disappear. He's not my kind of player. And then Schroeder, love his defense, love his length. If you get scoring out of him, I think it's a bonus. So I'd cut D'Lo, and I would cut Beasley.
Okay, I like it. Multiple goose
or let him go.
Multiple goose eggs from Russell, bringing it all back to Kevin Duckworth, the 00.
The 00.
Putting a bow tie on this, obviously, we like talking cards, markets. Are there any moves, right? Draft, trades, now that some of those gentlemen have settled and they're in their current destination. Is there anything that interests you in buying a particular player during the offseason because you believe their market ascends, whether it's personal accomplishments or team success or a variation of both in season?
No.
Nothing moving the needle. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing's really standing out to me. It's like there's nothing was significant from a trading card perspective that would make me go, oh, like I low-key think this is going to be incredible for X, Y, and Z player.
Like adding Porzingis doesn't mean it's worth buying Tatum on the dip, right? Like something along with that correlation.
Because what's Tatum's real dip right now? Like what's his market really down? It's not down a significant amount where it's worth the risk.
Okay. Yep.
Like his stuff is his collector base is pretty strong, and his cards have actually held a pretty decent value after such a disappointing playoff run. So I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised his cards haven't been down more than they are down now. So that's why I would say no on Tatum. That would probably be the most obvious one.
No KD resurrection.
No, KD doesn't have a good brand. Okay. People don't like KD, right? We've talked about brand on here a ton. And that's part of the rub with KD is KD doesn't have a great brand. He's not a super likable guy because of how he's handled himself and responded to things. And look, I'll be completely frank. If I was KD in his shoes, I'd probably respond the same way. People would annoy me. They'd probably piss me off. And I'd probably respond the same way he did. I probably wouldn't have the greatest brand if I was in the NBA. So it's not a knock on KD, but when you're looking for investability and collectability, you want the guys that aren't going to get super politically motivated, that aren't going to piss people off, the guys that stay late, sign autographs, the Steph Currys, the Ricky Fowlers, if you were watching, after he failed at the U.S. Open, was still out there signing autographs at night. Like, those are the kind of guys, when you're investing, you have to look at their off the court or off the field stuff that really helps drive value.
Two things that we like coming up now.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. It's time, folks. That's right. We're going to discuss undervalued and overvalued cards, or maybe even some memorabilia assets, potentially some players. Is it time to buy, sell, or hold on to these assets or players? We'll give you some opinions and back it up.
All right, we're back this week, and both of us found undervalued selections. I gravitated away from undervalued and went overvalued the last 2 weeks. You're staying strong. Yeah, I'm back, baby. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. I'm going to let you start because I absolutely love where your mind's at. And, I'd been thinking about it in a different market, but it's very much parallel. So I'm going to let you have the floor. Give us your undervalued selection of the week.
I'm surprised I actually didn't pick this sooner. I've mentioned on the pod before that 1961 Fleer basketball is my favorite set of all time, and why the inaction cards in that set have never been part of my undervalued is surprising, but here we are. So in this set, there is a portrait variation, which is, from a numerical standpoint is first, like Wilt Chamberlain's card number 8. So there's a portrait variation, and then there's an in-action variation for each of those players, and that's later on in the set from a numerical perspective. The in-action variations they actually typically have less of a grading supply than the portrait variations because they're not quite as popular, but it's literally just a different picture of it's the player in action, right? It's actually a game shot, which is interesting because in today's day and age, the action shot that is most likely to happen in a game brings more value, right? Like you could have, what was it, Zion shooting versus Zion dunking. Like the shooting variations don't get the demand that the dunking one does because it's like, well, the guy sucks at shooting. So, but in this case, the in action sells for much less than the portrait. And to give you an example, I'll use Chamberlain as the example here. So his most popular card, like I mentioned, card number 8, his portrait rookie. There's almost been 2,000 copies graded by PSA specifically. His in-action card from that set, only 1,200. So 60% of the supply for the same set, just a different card within the set. And a PSA 8, for example, is a pop 185 in that set for a portrait. And in the in-action is only a pop 144 for a PSA 8. Now, that same PSA 8 for the portrait costs you $45,000, okay, on average. In-action, no joke, PSA 8, $4,500. Literally a tenth of the price from the same set, just a different image really is all it is. So when you're looking, and you can study Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor, all rookies from that set. It's pretty consistent that the in-action photos are about 1/8 to 1/12 of the price of the portrait variations. Now, some of the grading is a little bit different, but still the supply is typically less for in-action than it is for the portrait variation. So that's why the Fleer in-action cards are my undervalued pick of the week.
I know you actually really, truly believe in this one because you have mentioned it numerous times to the point where I had to go into all of our notes exchanges through the first 27 episodes and be like, did he give this one out already? And the answer was no, but we've talked about it that much. So I love the play because, again, it has a parallel. For a long time, my belief has been some of the Topps baseball all-star cards of the key players relative to their base are wildly undervalued. So your play is the parallel for hoops. Absolutely love it. My undervalued selection, not going to be that shocking. I'm kind of going back to what we've discussed numerous times already, just doubling down, tripling down on a different set and player. Yeah, our belief is vintage football is undervalued, and that belief continues, and specifically the 1958 top set, extremely condition sensitive, centering issues, print defects with snowing, flimsy card stock, and the key card in this 58 Topps football set is Jim Brown, his rookie, right? And one of the greatest running backs of all time. So undervalued set, undervalued sector of the market. I think this is an undervalued position. We've mentioned this numerous times, like knowing many of the rushing numbers with the way offenses are trending in the NFL right now, and where we have 2 and 3 running back backfields, it makes it difficult for newcomers to establish themselves and take, running back market share. You look just at the card in and of itself, 65 years. Less than 6,500 total copies have been graded between SGC and PSA. And then you take it a step further, only 13% have been assessed near mint or better, so a numerical 7 or higher grade. I think there's some real opportunity long-term to grab decent-looking 7s for well under 10K. And so that's my undervalued play of the week.
Yeah, and it is hard to find decent-looking 7s, though, to be
You
honest.
guys sold one
right?
recently in SGC. It went for right around 10K. There was a shit copy that sold recently on eBay for like 4,800. You can find a couple in that like 7, 8, 9 range that I've seen just based on some recent comps.
Yeah, it's just a really – I think we've talked about this card. Maybe we did it for Magic Number before, but the print on this card is brutal. The centering on this card is brutal. So it's really hard to find this card in high grade. Hence, there's only 13% of the population amongst all those companies being mint or better, near mint or better. But I love this play. I really do. I think this is a fantastic card. Pretty well known as the greatest running back of all time. Statistically, you want to throw Emmitt Smith in there, or potential if Barry Sanders played longer, sure. But when it all boils down to it, most people will have Jim Brown ranked as the greatest running back of all time. And you're right. It's really hard to be a running back in the NFL. And unless the way the game is played drastically changes to a slower, more laborious game of football, which our attention spans are only getting shorter, so I doubt that's going to be the case, I don't see there being an all-time great running back come through the NFL for a long time. I just don't think the way the game is played today, it is conducive for an NFL running back to get over 1,700 yards a year, 1,800 yards a year, right? It's just so hard. Like you mentioned, multiple backfields with all the injuries, the speed of the game. It's just not conducive for someone to come and steal the limelight. So when it goes down to an ROI perspective, looking at vintage running backs, you got to look at Jim Brown and finding a nice clean copy. I think you can't go wrong.
I'm going to save you from some of the listeners here. The 90s collectors, they've spoken.
Mm-hmm.
Barry Sanders, exponentially better than Emmitt Smith, who played behind just a fantastic offensive line and piled up some numbers.
Sure. Well, I clarified with statistically, you could say Emmitt.
I'm looking out for you. I
right?
don't want
potential.
people DMing you being like,
you can say Barry,
did
right?
you just say Emmett's better than Barry?
No,
I'm saving you from
look,
DMs.
I'm a 49er fan. I would never say that. I'm just saying statistically, he has the most yards of all time for running back. So that's why you can, if you want to point to just stats, someone would make the claim, of course, a Cowboys fan, that he's the greatest running back of all time. But Barry, Barry's the most electric running back of all time. That is unquestionable. But he just only played, 9 seasons, 10 seasons?
Shortened career.
That's it.
Yes, the Lions were that bad they forced him to retire early. Same with Calvin Johnson.
They forced everyone to retire early, or they just draft all my Oregon Ducks, and then those guys just end up sucking.
Pick a number, any number, whatever it may be. We got a number inside, but we want a magic number. All right, this is where we're going to pick a few big cards that enter in an auction over the next couple of days, and we're going to try and guess how much they sell for in advance. Throw out a number. We got one too.
Fortunately for our listeners, you haven't retired early because of this next segment, Magic Number. There's 3 great cards.
Ouch.
We're going to be talking.
I know where you're going with
about.
that. Ouch.
Wow.
I got to tell you, that was a monster lead-in.
That
was a good lead-in. I came off the top rope.
Shots.
That was a Jimmy Snuka off the top rope. Okay.
Good Lord.
We got 3 cards again this week. Vintage, Brady, and an epic signature. The first one we're going to talk about, the 1954 Topps. Hank Aaron. SGC 7. It comes with the PWCC enhanced I designation of an E. Not much needs to be said, right, about a beautifully centered 54 Topps Hank Aaron with great color, but I will let you talk about it and then give us where you believe this card will land, sir.
Really nice example here. One of the most coveted rookie cards in all of vintage baseball. One of the greatest baseball players of all time. Really hard card to find well-centered. It's just got a very small border, and it's just known to be really off-center. So finding this one in a 7 that's really well-centered, it got the PWCCE exceptional eye appeal, and it's obviously going to sell for a premium because of that. I'm guessing, the reason I like picking cards that have the eye appeal designation for vintage isn't necessarily to pump PWCC, which I don't mind doing, but it's more because there's more of a variance in the final sale price, and it's less can be, we get enough data when we look at vintagecardprices.com or CardLout or whatever it may be, and it's a lot easier to determine what the final sale price is of a random vintage or a normal vintage card that doesn't have amazing eye appeal, but there's a little bit more question to the final sale price when it's this nice. So that's why these get chosen. And I've got this card specifically at $14,200.
Really good guess. This card to me, it's just, I enjoy vintage cards and SGC holders. I think the Tux really has,
they look great.
These cards just pop. And if you buy the card, which is what we preach, buy the card, not the 12-cent piece of plastic from China, you can get great deals, buying vintage SGC slabs relative to their PSA counterpart. All told, between PSA and SGC, 780 copies have been assessed 7 or better, nearly 70 years, not a lot. And we haven't had any SGC 7s sell this year. There's been close to 20 PSA 7s, though, so we at least have some data points. Your guess, sir, is really good. I only wrote down one price. It's $13,800, so I'm going to stick with that. So we have a nice little gap there for vintage, relatively speaking. But I think we're pretty close here that this is going to do a monster number relative to other SGC 7s because it's literally that beautiful.
Yeah, agreed.
The next one, I'm going first, but I'm going to have to inquire about something. This card, the 1999 Upper Deck Century Legends Epic Signatures, Larry Bird autograph. It's serial numbered to 33 copies and PSA 8 grade. This is one of the most iconic basketball autograph sets of all time. And this is the Century version, which means it's serial number to the player's jersey. The serial number is handwritten. The photo is gold, which is a differentiator in addition to the serial number from the base version. Larry Bird's market's very weird to me. And because of that, I value a card like this far higher than the market. I wish I actually collected Larry Bird. This should be a 5,000 plus card all day long. But I did notice.
Agreed.
Did notice this card recently sold in May for roughly $3,500. You would know better than me. Is this buyer's remorse or a non-pay, which can kind of drastically change the opinion when this gets run 5-6 weeks apart?
Yeah, exactly. I do like to bring up cards like this because the reality in this market is that unpaids happen. And it's not something to shy away from. We do everything we can to protect our sellers and have it not happen, but there are assholes and idiots out there, and it happens. And so when it happens, I'm not afraid to talk about it. And as a marketplace, it's our job to do better, and we always strive to do that. But this is an example that, cards sold about 5 weeks ago. It actually sold for less than I thought it would when it sold originally. To your point, like this should be a $5,000 plus card. So I'm curious with the relist, a little bit of buzz around the draft. Basketball's, kind of riding that wave. Does it sell for around what it did last time? Or does it sell for a little bit less? Yeah. Typically, these do not sell for more. That's
some we've outlined. Yeah, they sell for a little bit less the second time around. My hope is this card doesn't feel that impact because it's awesome.
Unique enough where it might not.
This one's weird. We're
going to be pretty close, I'm assuming.
My gut says it still sells for a touch less. I'm going to go with a nostalgic number here, $3,033.
I like what you did there. I'd like to think it would sell for more.
Me too.
Just because I think it undersold the first time. But I'm going to play the smart game, and I'm going to come in just under you and play the under game at 3,200.
You said 3,200.
3,200.
So you're going over me.
Right?
No, I'm $3,033. So you're over me.
Oh, I apologize. I thought you said 3,300. No. Yes, I'm over you at 3,200.
Okay, that's all right. Little Magic Johnson number. A battle.
That's right.
Here.
That's right. See, you like that? See what I did there?
Tying it all together. Okay, got you down for 3,200. I actually like your number better now that we discussed this openly together. The final card here. 2018 Panini Contenders Optic winning ticket gold vinyl of Steph Curry. It is a 1/1. It's in a BGS Gem Mint 9.5 slab. The last time this publicly sold was at the beginning of 2021 in February, actually. That was the peak of the market. It went for $7,100. Talk to us a little bit about this one and maybe what's changed since that time and give us your best guess.
Well, we're not at the peak of the market. That's for sure changed. So, this is a tough card right now to figure out where it's going to really land.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that it's not NBA season, it is a cool looking insert, but just this card in general is not a well-known insert. So I picked it because I think it's really a hard card to determine what the final sale price is. But with all of the data I looked at, my best guess, I might be kind of low, but I'm going for $4,385.
You're making me nervous. I mentioned, the peak of the market and that selling then. Curry's market has been impacted, but not as much as others, down about 28% in that, 2.5 year range. But the market on one-of-ones has increased, right? Specifically like superfractor, truly rare cards. I'm not sure I put gold vinyls and finites in that truly rare category. If you look since 2016, there's over 98 different gold vinyl Currys that have been produced. So it's something we've talked about before, a little bit of a fake scarcity. Cool card, nonetheless. I did some of my, market breakdowns. I'm actually going to be higher than you, which is absolutely stunning to me. I'm at 46.80 on this one, and now I'm immediately nervous about that.
Well, I want to be clear too. Gold vinyls annoy me. And they annoy me because there's out of 5s, there's out of 10s, there's 101s. It's
no rhyme or reason.
Can we be consistent? Like, how are we supposed to get new people into this space if we can't have some of the terminology be like, if you see a gold vinyl, you should know it's out of 5 or it's out of 10 or it's a 101, right? Like, if you see a Panini product and there's a black, typically it's a 101, but there's still weird shit that goes on with that too. So it's like the wording around there and consistency around the serial numbering, for me, it's got to change. It's so confusing. It's so annoying. Like, when I first saw this card, I thought it was going to be out of 5.
I agree.
It's
yeah.
not.
And I mean,
It's a
listen,
101.
if you're going to produce a bunch of stuff and overproduce, at least have one guy in the back, right, packed in the basement with his red stapler, creative enough to come up with new names, right? Like,
Sure.
that's
Sure.
it. Not hard. Just come up with a new name.
That's it.
Damn, that's a ghost. We're going to highlight a card that hasn't sold in more than a year right now, or is serial numbered to less than 100 copies produced. We're going to talk about why this card is significant, maybe in terms of hobbies or language or just the overall rarity of it all, and why it's considered a ghost.
Now on to something truly scarce. A 1970 Topps basketball Pete Maravich rookie in a PSA 10 gem mint. That is what makes this a ghost, is the grade. Talk to us a little bit about this card. I believe it's up for auction right now. It looks fantastic. Go into a little bit about this one on the Pete Maravich rookie.
I mean, my goodness. I remember this card coming into the vault about 6 months ago, and this gentleman started selling some cards from this set and some cards from his 69 Topps basketball set, and the Maravich was just staring me in the face the whole time, and I'm like, hey, when are you going to let that one rip? And it's live right now in a premier auction, and it is just such a rare copy. It's a Pop 2. Only 2 of these exist in PSA 10 example. There have been over 3,800 Maravich rookies graded, and only 2 have been given the 10 designation. And even 9s are extremely difficult with a rate of 2.5%. It's just an absolutely incredible, scarce card, really hard to find oversized cards because it's an oversized card. So from 69 and 70 top set, they're oversized cards. Really hard to find those in high grade. And we've seen a handful of the cards that he's been selling from these sets that he's had go for just berserk numbers and low population, but none are as important as this Maravich rookie. The thing with collectors too, it's if you see a card like this hit the market, if you don't go all in on it, you might not see it again. It's that rare. So in my opinion, this card's going to clear 200K. It could go berserk and do 400 or 500K if two guys really, really, really want it. But I've kind of got the over-under pegged at about 250 on this one just for fun.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good number. I was going to ask. I'm glad I don't have to be the one to put you on the spot, because I did see the other copy of this sold publicly in 2015 for $130, and I was going to kind of gauge your vibe if you thought this one would eclipse that. And so just kind of a perfect depiction is, we've talked for months now. The market is down a little bit, but on specific cards, right? The evolution of the space, everyone becoming more sophisticated. The good stuff, the primo stuff, the truly scarce stuff is still setting records, and we believe this one will be a record setter of the Pete Maravich PSA 10 rookie, a Pop 2.
Trading cards and memorabilia have seen incredible growth as an alternative investment. The company leading the growth? PWCC Marketplace. PWCC Marketplace runs the largest weekly auction of authenticated sports cards, Pokemon cards, comic books, video games, and memorabilia in the world. PWCC Marketplace also has more than 65,000 items listed in their fixed price marketplace that you can make an offer on right now. Head over to pwccmarketplace.com and see why they're the best option for buying and selling trading cards, memorabilia, and all of your collectibles. So we doing this or are we doing that? You tell me and we'll tell you. We're going to compare two cards right now with similar value that are completely different. Let me give you an example. Let's just say, for argument's sake, you have a vintage Mickey Mantle baseball card worth $30,000. But you also have a modern day Joe Burrow rookie card worth $30,000. Which one would you rather have and why? You tell us. We're going to tell you right now.
This is the part of the show where I have to tell our younger viewing audience, you might want to turn off the podcast, because there's going to be a Tiger Woods slobbering in your near future here. When I saw this one pop this week, I said, oh boy. The two cards we are comparing, a 2001 SP Authentic Sign of the Times Red Tiger Woods rookie auto in a PSA 10. It's serial numbered out of 274. And we're comparing it and choosing between that and a 1997 Star Ruby Steve Nash serial numbered out of 50 and PSA Mint 9, both recently sold in the low $8,000 range. This typically wouldn't be a debate, right? The GOAT of one sport versus a player most believe was undeserving of winning MVPs at the NBA level in Steve Nash. So very interesting choice, but I thought it was tough.
Well, that's why I chose it. I mean, on the surface, you know who I'm going to pick, and on the surface, I believed I knew who you would pick. So I kind of wanted to see. Look, you're a 90s insert guy, so I wanted to see if either one of us, after really doing our homework and our research, would get swayed one way or another. So that's kind of the genesis behind the picks this week. But I'll start with the Tiger. Yeah, sold for $8,400 a week ago. It is a dual PSA 10, so the autograph got a 10 as well as the condition of the card. And I think Tiger Woods cards are some of the most undervalued cards in our market. He's the go to that sport. I don't care what anybody says. Nicklaus is, fantastic, but he's not Tiger Woods. His dominance for that sport is ridiculous for his stretch he had. And his autograph, I think, is one of my favorite autographs of all time. I really do love his autograph. Roberto Clemente is my favorite auto of all time. Believe it or not, Jeter's actually up there. I love Jeter's autograph. I think it's just very intricate. This card is serial number 274, like you mentioned, so you can't really go wrong with a perfect auto, perfect card condition, and a serial numbered Tiger Woods rookie. Getting into Steve Nash. 97 Skybox Premium Star Ruby Steve Nash. So these are numbered out of 50. This is graded PSA 9. There's none graded higher. There's no 10s. This is a very condition-sensitive card. Sold a week ago for $8,100. 90 basketball inserts also hold a special place in my heart, because we wouldn't be where we are today for trading cards if it weren't for the market-changing designs and serial numbers, patch cards, on-card autos that all started really in the 96, 97 range. And Steve Nash is low key one of my favorite players to watch. He was one of the first point guards, in my opinion, that really navigated the court in a very tactical, interesting manner, doing some new things that other point guards had never done, like the way he used to run the baseline with the ball and pop it back out. And I just love a little guy like that from Santa Clara making an impact in the NBA. And then the Rubies design in general is one of my favorite designs of all time. I mean, it is. And the scans don't do it justice. The pictures online don't do it justice. You get this card in your hand, and it just pops. I mean, they are gorgeous the way it refracts off the light. It's just an unbelievable card. So this one ultimately came down to a much more difficult decision than I thought. But I can't ignore Tiger and my love for his greatness, so I've got to go with the big cat.
Do you know off the top of your head what the population is on this specific Tiger Woods card?
No, not this one. I didn't.
The only reason why I ask is because we know a lot of the Tiger Woods rookie autos have some bubbling, so there is some value that gets enhanced from a perfect 10 autograph. When I look at this, obviously, I'm going to start in the opposite direction, and it's the 97 Star Rubies Nash. It's serial numbered out of 50 copies. It's fantastic looking, to your point. No digital scan can capture how beautiful that card is. It really just needs to be something in hand that's under a light that you can kind of move around. You're like, oh, my God. It's rare. Basketball is a far bigger sport. 2-time NBA MVP. I like the way Steve Nash played his game, which you mentioned, but I think the way he played the game along with Mike D'Antonio changed the way basketball is played today, right? It's a lot more fun and gun, open. The one thing that made me lean towards the Nash Rubies is when you start to dig into 2001 SP Authentic Sign of the Times, Tiger cards, based on Beckett, there are 7 different variations of this card, each serial numbered differently. This one's the Players' Championship to 274, and then you have the Bay Hill out of 273, Memorial out of 66, Augusta to 65, Masters out of 63, NEC to 29, and then the Slam serial number to 4. All told, 774 serial numbered copies, and there's also base versions as well. I'm sure for a Tiger collector, a golf collector, putting that run together is a fun chase, but ultimately I'm going to go with the bigger sport and the actual rarity in that Rubies to 50 set, and just slight lean to the Nash, although I'm probably wrong long term.
Well, I will tell you that the dual 10 population for that Tiger Woods card is a 3.
Okay.
3.
So that does change some things a little bit.
Well, do you want to change your call?
No, let's this. You put this together.
Let it ride.
Well, you organize this so there would be an actual debate, and we would differ. And you did your job, sir. A slight lean to the Rubies Nash.
Appreciate it.
Anything else you got for us on the way out? I know you just launched the Vintage Premier Auction. There are some beautiful cards in that one. I'm probably gonna spend some money there. What else you got cooking up over there?
Yeah, the Vintage PA is live. We've got there's just under 100 cards in that auction. Just some really, really good quality stuff, along with the Maravich that we were discussing. Outside of that, we've got our July Premier Auction is going to be launching in a couple weeks. It's going to close during the National, and that's really exciting. The National, crazy enough, is 30 days away. How wild is that? How fast did it come? Is it because we're getting older? Yeah. Time's just flying by.
And you have more responsibilities. Every day's the same. And, it just gets here quicker and quicker every year.
Every year. So I know I said it last pod and probably the pod before, but really excited about the National. A lot of our focus is on preparing for that. We have a 50 by 50 booth this year, plus a 20 by 30 for breakers next door to it. So we've got a lot going on. We're going to be doing a lot of promotion. We're sponsoring a VIP booth for the National as well. Just tons of moving parts for preparing for the biggest show of the year, where you've got more assets in one room than any time throughout the calendar.
I was going to let that be the end, but now I have questions. Give us a little insight into You got the big booth, but what's going on there? Are you guys accepting cards for auctions, accepting cards for the vault? All of it.
All of it. So this is your chance to save on shipping. Drop anything off at the show for vaulting, for auction. We are also doing what's called we're calling the Breaker Network Lounge. So we're creating a sportsbook feel for breaking, where you can go sit down. We're going to have a bunch of TVs mounted up, and you're going to be able to watch a ton of different breakers in our space break. Go grab a beer at the local bar, go into our booth, sit down, take a load off. There's going to be some QR codes for our breaking partners to buy into some of the breaks while you're sitting there. So just kind of a little bit more of a chill vibe and atmosphere in our booth this year, along with all the other things we normally do as far as authentication. We're going to be authenticating cards in concert with NBA at the show. We're going to be doing eye appeal at the show this year. So those vintage cards we've talked about, bring them to the National, let our team take a look at them. And yeah, there's a ton going on.
Ooh, I didn't even know that. So you can bring your vintage cards, and you guys will assess their eye appeal and hopefully bump them up with better eye designation.
It is a free service if you are using our services. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
Beautiful. Okay, gonna have to check that out myself. All right, anything else before we depart, sir?
That's it for me. Looking forward to a couple. We're gonna take a couple weeks off. We got the 4th of July next week, and then I will be out of town. Our sales manager Brock is getting married in Mexico on the 11th. And so we will be out of town. So we're going to take a couple weeks off, but then we'll be back.
I'm just being alerted of this. I'll let that slide. Stay away from the water in Mexico, sir.
I will do my best.
Make sure you follow Payne on Twitter at Payne Insider. Subscribe to Bet the Board and get notified when new episodes of CardBoard Chat air on Tuesdays. And be sure to stop by pwccmarketplace.com for all your collecting needs.